Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. Tranquilo, plata o plomo.
Pablo Escobar is perhaps the most famous drug lord in the world. He built his life on murders and crimes starting from the mid-1970s. During this time, he became the most influential and well-known person in Colombia. However, the notoriety of his ruthless business spread far beyond South America, leading the country to be associated only with drugs, murders, and crime. Escobar was so influential and wealthy that he could completely bribe all the politicians in his country. His associates operated both in the White House in the USA and held high positions in Europe. In this video, we will explore how Pablo Escobar built his drug empire, touch on his biography, and discuss how he influenced his country and dictated his terms. Welcome to the Hustler channel, and enjoy the show. He started his criminal path at a young age, 16 years old. Pablo Escobar was involved in the trade of stolen tombstones from cemeteries in the city of Medellin. He sold them to middlemen from Panama, but the money earned was not enough. That's when he turned to more serious crimes, such as car theft and smuggling. Even in minor thefts, Escobar showed leadership qualities that helped him gather a small group. Its members engaged in extortion, threatening owners of expensive cars with theft if they refused to pay. If the victims still refused, the cars were indeed stolen. The gangsters did not bluff. Later, Escobar's associates moved on to kidnapping people. One of the most famous victims was a wealthy landowner, Bego and Chego Rio. Under Escobar's cover, the bandits kidnapped him, demanding a large ransom. However, they never received the money. As a result, the kidnappers began to torture their victim. But not getting any information, they strangled him and dumped the body in a city dump. Pablo Escobar didn't even hide his involvement in this death and accidental demise, but still faced no punishment. Moreover, those who knew about his criminal activities respected him and called him El Doctor. Escobar also used his crime earnings to build housing for the poor. He created model homes and provided affordable housing, which made people love him even more. However, all these kidnappings and petty thefts seemed insignificant compared to what Pablo learned in the early 1970s. He noticed the rapidly growing criminal market of drug supply to the USA and understood the immense money in this business. That's when Escobar decided to fully focus on the drug trade. At first, he acted as a middleman, buying cocaine from producers and reselling it to smugglers at a markup. However, Pablo was known for his cruelty towards competitors, and by the mid-1970s, he was already regarded as the main drug lord of Colombia. When Escobar couldn't eliminate his competitors, he allied with them, and in 1977, the infamous Medellin drug cartel was formed. During this time, Pablo was already at war with law enforcement agencies. In 1976, he was almost apprehended by police officers who had a warrant for his arrest, but he managed to evade capture with money. Later, the officer and judge who supported his arrest were killed. Legends about Escobar's cruelty were widespread. Death awaited anyone who dared to smuggle drugs out of Colombia without his knowledge. Almost every drug producer was obliged to give him a share for distribution. Gradually, Pablo expanded his influence networks throughout South America, establishing drug trafficking operations in the Bahamas to facilitate shipments to the USA. During this time, he also engaged in attracting customers by offering the first dose for free, significantly increasing the number of drug addicts. By the late 1970s, the Medellin drug cartel became the leader of the drug trade in the USA. Controlling 80% of the market, Pablo Escobar's daily revenue reached up to $420 million. The annual income of his drug cartel, with average sales of 15 tons of cocaine, amounted to about $22 billion. The secret to his empire's incredible success was largely due to the constant bribery of law enforcement officers and officials. He could buy almost anyone and only shared his plans and thoughts with close associates. To transport equipment to the cartel's drug laboratories, Escobar involved entire military units, including 43 sergeants and 5 officers. They were commanded by a captain who had previously undergone training with the drug mafia. Those who refused to cooperate with Escobar faced intimidation or even death. His favorite motto was plata o plomo, silver or lead. Having become immensely wealthy, the cocaine king decided to enter mainstream politics and invested a considerable amount of money in his promotion. He managed to become a substitute member of the Colombian Congress, and in case any congressman couldn't attend meetings, Escobar made decisions on their behalf. Moving his family to the Colombian capital, Bogotá, Escobar aimed for much more. He dreamt of becoming president, and he knew better than anyone that he could achieve that goal over time. However, in 1984, he earned himself a sworn enemy, Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara, who not only despised the cocaine king, but also proved that dirty money from drug sales was invested in Escobar's electoral campaign. Following Rodrigo's lead, in January 1984, the drug lords expelled Escobar from Congress, kicking him out of the parliament. On April 30th, 1984, when the minister's Mercedes stopped at a traffic light, two hitmen shot him at point-blank range, and Escobar was hit by several bullets in the shoulder. Rodrigo tried to hide between the seats but was finished off with a shot to the back of the head. Crashing into a tree on a motorcycle, one of the bandits died on the spot, while two others were apprehended by the operatives. Shortly after the murder of a congressman, several of Escobar's close associates were arrested on suspicion of organizing the crime, and hearings began. However, the drug lord's henchmen killed the lead prosecutor, and the immediate assassin of the justice minister was never properly punished. But such a large-scale crime did not go unnoticed by the mastermind behind it. Declared a fugitive, Escobar had to go into hiding. Meanwhile, the deceased justice minister posthumously triumphed over his formidable adversary. His political career was forever closed off, and in an attempt to return, Escobar promised the Colombian authorities to pay off the country's entire external debt of $13 billion. But his offer was rejected. Soon, Escobar suffered another powerful blow. The U.S. government under Ronald Reagan, concerned about the influx of low-grade cocaine into the country, made an agreement with Colombian authorities that every drug lord involved in cocaine exportation would be extradited to the U.S. This prospect likely did not please the #1 drug lord, as being sent to the U.S. would strip him of any chance to control his own drug empire. To counter the Colombian authorities, Escobar created a terrorist group called Los Extra Details. Their militants started hunting down policemen attempting to fight the drug cartel, offering a bounty of $5,000 for each officer killed. Over the course of 2 years, the terrorists killed around 500 law enforcement officers, and the overall death toll reached several thousand. The most notable action of Los Extra Details was the attack on the Palace of Justice in Bogotá, carried out with guerrilla support in 1985. Sponsored by Escobar's rivals, armed with machine guns and grenades, they seized the building. While the rebels held their defense, they destroyed all the documents prepared for the extradition of several arrested drug traffickers to the U.S. In the end, security forces stormed the Palace of Justice, but the operation was extremely unsuccessful. 97 hostages were killed, and the judicial system was paralyzed. The surviving law enforcement officers were so frightened that they refused to conduct proceedings for a long time. Utilizing all his connections and vast resources, Escobar attempted to overturn the extradition law with the help of corrupt officials. Initially, he succeeded, but in 1986, the Supreme Court overturned the agreement between the U.S. and Colombia. However, the drug lord's celebration was short-lived. Just a few days later, the newly elected Colombian president, Vargas, revoked the court's decision and kept the extradition agreement with the U.S. in force. One of Escobar's closest associates, Pablo, was promptly sent to the U.S. and forced to evade the authorities. A whole series of safe houses was set up in Colombian cities to assist him. The love of the poor people helped him hide, as voluntary informants were everywhere, warning him of approaching police. His family went into hiding with him. Decades later, Escobar's son recalled how one time, while on the run, they had to spend the night in an open field without even enough firewood to keep warm. It was then that Pablo said, "In this life, I can find a replacement for anything, but I have never replaced my wife and children," a phrase he loved to say. The Colombian authorities had no time to recover before a series of bloody terrorist attacks followed, with 7 explosions organized by the gangs. In the autumn of 1989, over 30 people were killed, and around 400 injured ended up in hospitals, with many of them becoming lifelong invalids. Escobar's terror in Medellin claimed the lives of 40 to 50 people every week. Among Colombians, a dreadful panic started to spread over capturing the drug lord. A reward of $1 million was offered in the USA for information leading to his capture. But Escobar outdid himself in his bloody terror. On November 27, 1989, his associates brought a bomb on board a passenger Boeing, which exploded a few minutes after takeoff. The target of the attack was the staunch anti-drug campaigner and presidential candidate of Colombia, Cesar Trujillo. However, at the last moment, the politician changed his travel plans, and the explosion claimed the lives of 107 people, a student, a passenger, and 6 crew members. Yet Escobar's reign of terror did not stop. It only weakened the efforts of those hunting him down. After the airplane disaster, security forces dismantled a significant portion of the Medellin cartel's chemical laboratories. The authorities seized about 4.5 tons of cocaine during the operation. They also confiscated numerous mansions, farms, planes, cars, and boats belonging to Escobar. In response, the drug lord came up with nothing better than to increase the tax imposed on drug dealers. The previous 23% rose to a staggering 70%. The number of Escobar's enemies rapidly increased. One of his main pursuers was the chief of Colombia's secret police, General Miguel Maza Marquez. Escobar attempted to eliminate the general through a terrorist attack in Bogotá on December 6, 1989. Although Marquez remained unharmed, 62 innocent civilians lost their lives. After this incident, all the officials who had been bought by Escobar turned away from him. Not even vast sums of money could entice them to cooperate with the terrorist. The best investigators and operatives from Colombia and the USA formed a special task force to hunt down the Cayenne dwarf. They swiftly eliminated 3 of Escobar's closest associates: Liker from the Medellin cartel, Gilberto Arenas on José Rodriguez, and Gocha and his son Freddy. At the same time, facing difficult times, the Cali cartel declared war on the Medellin cartel. Both sides suffered significant losses, becoming cornered beasts. Escobar returned to his old methods and started kidnapping people, including ordinary Colombians and relatives of prominent politicians. Among his victims were even close family members of several former Colombian presidents. Under their pressure, the incumbent president of the country, Cesar Gaviria, was forced to make concessions. He agreed to accept Escobar's surrender and, in return, promised to violate the agreement with the USA and not hand over their main enemy. Taking advantage of the president's loyalty, Pablo negotiated the right to be incarcerated in the prison he himself had built on one of the mountain slopes in 1992, called La Catedral. However, it was difficult to call the place that the drug lord eventually built a prison. It sprawled across a vast area and featured a pool, a football field, gardens, waterfalls, and a barbecue area. Inside the prison buildings, there was space for a casino, saunas, a dance floor, and numerous bars serving elite alcohol. Nevertheless, the authorities did not want him to stay in this so-called prison for long and decided to transfer him to a real penitentiary. When rumors of the president's plans reached Pablo, he immediately left La Catedral and went on the run again. After some time, the fugitive got in touch with the media and attempted to negotiate privileges for himself, but to no avail. The president outright refused any cooperation. Frustrated and destitute, Escobar decided to resort to more terrorist acts. On January 30, 1993, a powerful explosion occurred near a bookstore in Bogotá, claiming the lives of 21 people, mostly children with their parents. These attacks turned even his former impoverished admirers against the drug lord. They began calling Escobar nothing but a child killer. Instead of fearing the Colombian authorities, the king of cocaine faced a merciless attack. Fighters from Los Extraditables burned down places associated with his mother and narrowly missed blowing up Escobar's mansion. The hunters changed their tactics. They stopped trying to reach the drug lord directly and started eliminating his close associates, threatening to go after his family as well. The notorious enemy of the state was in check. He realized that another terrorist attack might be the last one, not for him, but for his loved ones. Escobar attempted to send his mother, wife, and children abroad, but the Colombian authorities anticipated this move and prohibited Pablo's relatives from leaving the country. Amid all these events, the perpetual fugitive Escobar calmly endured the news of the disintegration of the Cali cartel. Upon learning this, he once again changed his place of residence and settled in Las Carcelas, one of the neighborhoods in Medellin. On December 1st, 1993, the former #1 drug lord celebrated his 44th birthday. The occasion proved to be particularly joyless for the evasive baron. To lift his spirits somewhat, the next day, he decided to call his son, whom he hadn't seen for a whole year. This call became a stroke of luck for the special forces, who were wiretapping the phone of his family members. Usually, fugitives managed to communicate with their loved ones for just a few seconds to avoid detection. But this time, Pablo talked to his son for a full 5 minutes. He gave away his hideout within minutes. The Los Laboff neighborhood was surrounded, and Pablo hid like a common criminal. Operatives closed in on him, knowing he was cornered. Escobar started shooting back and then took off his shoes, climbed out of a window, and ran along the rooftop. That's where death caught up with him. One of the bullets fired by a sniper hit the fugitive in the head. According to another version, Escobar realized the hopelessness of his situation, took out the pistol he always carried, and ended his own life. That's how the life of Colombia's top drug lord played out. To some, he became a symbol of resistance against authority, while to others, he was just a common killer. But no one remained indifferent. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave comments, and watch other videos. This was Hustler. Until next time.